For more than 220 years, Oak Island has swallowed theories, fortunes, and countless failed digs. But right now, something different is happening. Something no expert ever saw coming. For the first time, the endless guessing may finally be over. Because one researcher claims to have identified the exact location where the legendary $300 million treasure could be hiding. Her name is Emma Culligan. And what she uncovered wasn't just another theory. It was a razor-sharp discovery so specific, so unexpected, that the Oak Island team moved fast to verify it. Emma connected forgotten pirate symbols, long-ignored historical survey points, and modern underground void scans. Three completely separate sources that all converge on one precise spot. A spot that, unbelievably, has never been excavated. No random digging, no assumptions, just a flawless alignment pointing to a single untouched location on the island. And if her calculations are correct, this could be the breakthrough that finally shatters Oak Island's 200-year mystery. So, stay locked in, because what you're about to see may change everything we thought we knew. And before we dive deeper, hit subscribe so you don't miss discoveries like this one. The day Emma Culligan returned to Oak Island, something felt different before anyone even spoke. The island wasn't battered by wind or echoing with machinery like it had been all season. Instead, it was unnervingly quiet, heavy, watchful, as if the land itself had paused. Emma stepped out of the truck with a calm intensity that caught Lagina's attention instantly. There was no hesitation in her movements, no uncertainty. She didn't look like someone arriving to explore an idea. She looked like someone arriving to verify the answer. Rick had spent years surrounded by experts, engineers, historians, treasure hunters, theorists, each convinced they were onto something. But Emma carried herself differently. She wasn't chasing possibilities. She walked as if the island had already whispered its secret to her. A thick morning fog hugged the swamp, drifting low and dense, muting every sound and giving the landscape a primeval, almost sacred weight. It wrapped around Emma's boots as she headed toward the swamp's eye, as though the island itself was reluctant to let her pass. Rick followed closely, watching as she unfolded survey maps spanning generations. Maps he knew by heart. Maps that defined Oak Island's entire history. Yet Emma read them in a way he'd never seen, skipping obvious markings, focusing instead on faint lines and overlooked shading that most researchers had dismissed for decades. Every time her finger paused on a detail, Rick felt a tightening in his chest. That familiar pressure, the feeling that comes right before something breaks open. For the first time in years, the island didn't feel stubborn or silent. It felt alert, like something beneath the mud and stone had been waiting for the right person to arrive. The legendary treasure, the whispered vault, the $300 million promise, suddenly didn't feel like folklore. It felt close, uncomfortably close. Emma knelt near the swamp's center, pressing her gloved hand into the damp soil. She nodded slightly, as if confirming something she already knew. Then she waved the team over. The moment her instruments activated, everything changed. A subtle distortion appeared beneath the swamp's eye, faint, barely visible but unmistakable. Rick narrowed his eyes. He'd seen countless false positives over the years, sonar errors, misleading voids, meaningless anomalies. But this wasn't that. Emma fine-tuned the signal, and the image sharpened. The density readings were wrong, completely wrong. They didn't match natural sediment. They didn't match swamp compression. They didn't match anything that should exist beneath an untouched wetland. What they did match was something deliberate: layered soil, compacted ground, engineered space. Rick inhaled sharply as Emma swept the scanner again. That's when the image locked in and the group froze. Straight lines, clean angles, symmetry. A void that didn't twist or erode like a natural cave. This wasn't chaos, this was geometry. Emma spoke quietly, her voice tight with certainty. This isn't natural. Someone built this. No one reacted with cheers or disbelief. The silence was heavier than excitement, because in all the years of searching, every hopeful scan, every promising signal, nothing had ever looked this intentional. This wasn't a clue. It wasn't a maybe. It was a structure. Rick leaned closer to the screen, hands unsteady. They weren't staring at a random underground space. They were looking at a layout, a vault, the kind of chamber you only construct to protect something extraordinary, something valuable enough to hide from centuries of seekers. Emma's eyes were alive with adrenaline and absolute confidence. This is the heart of the island, she said. Not speculation, a conclusion. Then she went further. She pulled up medieval Templar vault diagrams on her tablet. 13th century storage systems, collapsible chambers, diversion tunnels designed to mislead intruders. She layered those schematics over the swamp scan. The alignment was chilling. The angles matched. The proportions matched. Even the void dimensions were close enough to erase doubt. She explained how the Templars often concealed treasure beneath wetlands, using false sediment layers to disguise entrances. Waterlogged ground preserved wooden structures, slowed decay, and discouraged digging, an ingenious form of long-term protection. As Emma spoke, Rick felt a memory surface. A strange story his father once told him long ago, half dismissed, half forgotten, about something hidden beneath the swamp, an underground nest. Standing there, watching the evidence stack up, Rick realized that story might not have been a myth after all. A location early treasure seekers once whispered about as being significant. Rick had always brushed it aside as superstition, stories invented to unsettle newcomers. But standing there now, confronted with Emma's data, he felt a quiet unease. Those old murmurs suddenly felt less like myths and more like warnings misunderstood. Emma pressed on, pulling up an old Nova Scotia Templar transit map, one historians had long dismissed as unreliable. She highlighted a symbol missing near Oak Island, a mark scholars had blamed on a cartographer's error centuries ago. But when she overlaid that absent marker onto her newly calculated coordinates, the pieces snapped together with frightening precision. Tunnel trajectories, chamber orientation, swamp placement, every element locked into a single elegant plan that had gone unnoticed for generations. Then came the statement that shifted everything. This structure, Emma said, was never meant to store gold alone. It was a repository, a sealed archive, built to safeguard documents, relics, perhaps knowledge never intended to surface unless someone understood how to read the code. Rick stared at her in silence. If she was right, they weren't standing above a fortune. They were standing above a vault, capable of reshaping the story of North America itself. A structure intentionally designed, meticulously concealed, buried beneath a swamp precisely because no ordinary digger would ever reach it. For the first time since Rick Lagina first stepped onto Oak Island decades earlier, the treasure no longer felt like legend. It felt measurable, trackable, real. Without saying a word, Emma moved to the map table and laid a transparent overlay across the scans. Rick leaned closer as intersecting lines appeared, circles, arcs, and angles that weren't architectural at all. They were astronomical. Emma tapped the center point, and the display shifted, reconstructing the night sky as it appeared in the year 1347. Instantly, the swamp location aligned with an invisible axis stretching north. She rotated the projection until Polaris hovered directly above the swamp's center. The placement wasn't symbolic. It was mathematical. Emma explained that early Templar vaults weren't hidden using surface clues alone. Their entrances, tunnels, and secondary chambers were encoded using celestial positioning. Without aligning the sky to the correct historical year, explorers were doomed to search in the wrong place. She ran a time-lapse overlay, advancing the star field forward through the centuries. Rick watched as the alignment slowly drifted away from the swamp coordinate. Every dig ever attempted on Oak Island, Emma said, had relied on modern star charts. They were all off by only a few meters, but enough to doom every effort. Enough to turn precision engineering into apparent chaos. Enough to make collapses look accidental and flood tunnels seem random. When she reset the projection to the 1300s, the alignment snapped back into place, forming a sharp triangular geometry that converged on a single apex, Emma's exact location. Rick couldn't speak. The realization hit him all at once. Centuries of misunderstanding, thousands of failed hours, untold money spent, all undone by a single corrected lens. The island hadn't changed. History's perspective had. Before the weight of it could fully sink in, the team moved to the swamp with the revised coordinates marked. The first probe pierced the surface and slid into mud that felt unusually dense, almost resistant. As it descended, slow bubbles surfaced, measured, deliberate, like the swamp was releasing a long-held breath. This wasn't normal sediment behavior. Marty crouched near the edge, studying the pattern. "That feels like pressure equalization," he said quietly. "Like we just breached something sealed for centuries." The bubbles pulsed rhythmically, not randomly. Emma remained calm. This, she explained, was exactly what Templar hydraulic designs were meant to do. They engineered wetland layers to act as natural seals, using water pressure as a preservation mechanism. The reaction wasn't danger, it was confirmation. As the gas dispersed, a faint scent rose from the surface. Rick noticed it first. Old, earthy, woody. Not decay, but preserved timber. The unmistakable smell of ancient wood deprived of oxygen for hundreds of years. He met Marty's eyes. They both felt it. They weren't testing mud anymore. They were touching the environment left behind by the original builders. As the probe pushed deeper, soft sediment transitioned into something firmer, possibly packed clay walls or collapsed support beams. The swamp's surface rippled in subtle, repeating patterns. Geometry, not chaos. It began to feel less like a swamp and more like camouflage. Nature draped carefully over architecture. Emma studied the stabilized readings, her focus sharpening. Every prediction she'd made using celestial alignment was matching the physical data. Star geometry determined placement. Swamp engineering concealed it. Pressure dynamics preserved it. And now, all three systems were responding together. She opened a new data set, seismic disruption readings from previous deep tests. Normally, Oak Island scans were chaotic due to fractured geology. But with the corrected alignment applied, the data organized itself. Not into a single cavity, but something larger. Emma filtered out low-frequency noise. Slowly, a long, sloping anomaly appeared beneath the primary chamber. Rick leaned closer. Breath held. This wasn't a pocket. It wasn't erosion. It was linear, deliberate, consistent. A tunnel. She isolated it and applied angle measurements. The slope matched medieval Portuguese defensive bunkers almost exactly. Emma explained that such tunnels served dual purposes: secure storage and emergency escape routes for those guarding the repository. Rick had seen countless tunnel-like signals over the years that turned out to be nothing. Water channels, cracks, illusions. But this one was different. Its resonance was smooth, rhythmic, engineered. As Emma traced it deeper, the tunnel followed the exact curvature dictated by the Polaris alignment. Then came the moment that sent a chill through everyone watching. Roughly 40 feet beyond the main chamber, a secondary echo emerged. Rectangular, defined. The signal return was stronger than wood or clay. Stone. Emma froze the display. This wasn't rubble. It wasn't collapse. The angles were clean. Intentional. She zoomed in as far as the data allowed, and the outline became undeniable. A stone door, intact, unbreached, unmoved by centuries of water. Rick felt his spine tighten. He had imagined Oak Island tunnels his entire life, but none had ever presented certainty like this. "This is the most clearly defined tunnel we've ever seen," he whispered. No one disagreed. Emma stepped toward the projection, voice steady. "This system," she said, "wasn't built solely to hide valuables. It was designed to protect people, or allow escape if the vault was compromised. A dual-purpose engineering system. Rare, complex, almost never found intact after 700 years of flooding, weather, and human interference. Yet here it was, still holding, still guarding whatever had been sealed inside. With the tunnel mapped and the celestial alignment confirmed, Emma ordered a deeper seismic sweep along the corridor. As the probe advanced, the returns sharpened, revealing a dense cluster at the far end of the vaulted system. The software hesitated before stabilizing. This wasn't timber. It wasn't stone. The signal was jagged, layered, enormously heavy, metallic. Not one object, but many. Emma zoomed in as the density map shifted into deep reds and blacks, the unmistakable signature of extreme mass. The signal resolved into layered contours, overlapping like compressed plates or stacked bars crushed together by centuries of pressure. Marty leaned closer, his expression shifting instantly. He'd seen this exact frequency profile before in European archaeological reports from Spain, where ancient vaults had been uncovered with gold ingots, chalices, and ceremonial relics fused together underground over time. The match was unsettlingly close. Emma widened the scan and initiated a full mass calculation. The system ran density, volume, depth, and resistance simultaneously. When the final number appeared, she drew in a sharp breath. Just under 4,000 pounds. Rick stared, barely registering the words. 4,000 pounds of metallic material, sealed inside a chamber engineered for stability, protected by celestial alignment, and preserved beneath a pressure-regulated swamp. Emma recalibrated and ran the calculation again. The result didn't change. Only tightly stacked metal artifacts, or a concentrated hoard of gold, could produce a signature this intense. Even at modern prices, a fraction of that mass would exceed $300 million. And if the contents weren't simple bullion, but ceremonial Templar reliquaries or sacred objects, the true value would be impossible to measure. This wasn't just wealth being hidden. It was purpose. Rick stepped back, the weight of the realization nearly overwhelming him. For decades, he had dug, scanned, theorized, and hoped for proof within arm's reach. And all that time, the swamp, the very place they had drained, analyzed, dismissed, and returned to again and again, had kept its secret just beyond them. He remembered his earliest days on the island, when he still believed the treasure might reveal itself mystically. His father once said it wasn't simply hidden, it was waiting for the right person. Watching Emma calmly align star charts, seismic data, and structural logic with the precision of someone solving a long-forgotten cipher, Rick felt a truth settle in. Maybe Oak Island had been waiting for her. Every collapse, every false lead, every failure had redirected the search away from the money pit and toward this exact moment. For the first time, Rick didn't feel resistance from the island. He felt response. Emma cross-referenced the mass readings with tunnel slope data, tightening the parameters. The system reacted instantly, as if a locked sequence had finally been entered correctly. Rick felt the pressure of decades pressed down so hard he had to brace himself against the equipment table. "You might have solved the island," he whispered. Emma didn't respond. All converging on a single point, Emma Culligan had finally revealed. The place where the story may end, or where its greatest chapter is about to begin. If you enjoyed this video, like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more incredible discoveries. Your support helps us keep uncovering history's deepest mysteries.